Bayani. I am the program manager over at Kearny Street Workshop. Thank you all for coming for visiting our roots, where we've been, where we're going. We're really excited about this program. It's part of our three-part series, Reclaiming Our Roots, which started with a four-part workshop with Tony Robles here in the hotel, the Manilatown Center, which is really awesome. It just ended a couple weeks ago, and it's going to end next week with Asian Americans Coast to Coast, our 3-city live reading with Kunyaman in New York and the Twin Cities Asian American Literary Collective out in the Twin Cities. So it's going to be a real cool event next week. So when me and TJ were building this program, we were kind of wanted to find a way to kind of bring the past and the present together. There's all these cool new artists that we've been encountering, and we've been always trying to open up, kind of open up who we're opening spaces to, for our shows, our events, and kind of expanding our blanking here, kind of expanding expanding how who we're pulling in our audience. Yeah, I know I haven't had any food yet, but we also wanted to. We also been talking a lot about looking towards the past to kind of help guide the present, and help us guide us towards the future. So. The idea of doing this kind of talk story actually came because we posted a photo and Bob Shannon said, "Hey, let's do a talk story sometime." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." And so today we're going to start off this talk story panel with several artists and organizers who helped shape what this organization became. And our panelists today are Nancy Hong, Syquia, Zand, Leland Wong, Jerry Jiao, Genny and Jiao. And we'll bring them up in a second. And we wanted to pair that with artists today. We thought we were doing some really great work as far as arts and organizing and arts and activism. And we have some really cool artists that are going to be performing later, and we paired them with Genny, who is an awesome poet and has been doing it for a while. We have Dark Matter come all the way from New York. And we also have Aisha Fukushima, who will be closing out the night. So before we start, I'd like to say a couple thank yous to APIC, San Francisco Arts Coalition, Artworks as part of the National Endowment for the Arts, Arts Play, California Arts Council, Grants for the Arts, and the Manilatown Heritage Foundation. Thank y'all for being here. So I'd like to welcome up Nancy. Here you are. And Nancy will kick off this panel for everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Let's see, does this come off the thing here? Well, we're sharing this mic. So at this point, I don't mean for this to be one person gets up at a time and remembers, because to tell you the truth, we don't remember anything. We need everybody up here. So come on up, panelists. Come on up and panelists. So that's Zand over there. I'll just introduce you all in order. That's Leland Wong over there by the left. And Leland is a photographer, muralist, and silkscreen artist. Zand is a photographer, poster printmaker, and she was also the former director in the early days in the 80s, right? What year was that? In 1981. We can't remember. But anyway, she was director of Kearny Street Workshop way back in the 80s. Let's see who we have. We have Jerry Jiao here. He's a photographer, community organizer. Anything else you want to say? Tango dancer. Not back in the day. We all became dancers and life was good. So here's Syquia. have for you poet and someone, part-time poet, well, full-time fool. And he also, I remember him organizing a lot of poetry readings and writers' workshops back in the day. And then there's Genny Lim. I have to shorten this. She's a poet, playwright, and performer, and also co-writer of the book Island with Mark Lai and Judy Young, and a whole host of other things, but please look her up. So me, I came to Kearny Street Workshop as a visual artist, printmaking, mural painting, and poetry at KSW, and also curated exhibitions. I later became director of Kearny Street Workshop from 1995 to 2003. So that's us. And to start off, I want to get us in the mood by recalling the words of the late Al Robles, who always watches over this place. Al was a beloved Manam and also a poet laureate, historian, and old-time KSW member. I think even before I arrived in 1974. Was he part of the very, very first year? I can't remember. You're going to hear me say that a lot. So this is from his book, Rapping with 10,000 Caravel in the Dark. All the stories I've heard have not been written. Who's going to travel far back into the past? Writing empty poems to the wind is closer to Ifagal Mountain, brings the mind closer to its roots. And so we're going to begin to write this empty poem with our collective memories. And I also encourage the audience to chime in. That's why we have this super long chord here, because you all probably remember more than we do. And so in the beginning, I meant for this to be a conversation, not us facing you, but here we are. This is the format. I want to give a broad overview of what was happening in the 1960s and 70s. What was the climate throughout the country then? And I don't know everything, so please chime in, please. So as far as I can remember, it was the beginning of many movements. The post-civil rights movement, the women's movement was just starting. There was the counterculture movement. I'm from New York, but I imagine there was the Flower Power, Kate Ashbury movement, Black Power movement, the Third World Liberation movements, opposition to the Vietnam War, and solidarity with domestic and global struggles for social justice and human rights, and a lot of cultural movements.
Yeah,
yes,
it was, you know, the movement, you think about it, they're all about freedom, right? To be more than you are. And if you look at all the movements that came about, I think during the 70s and late 60s, it was about identity, for one, emerging identities for all people of color, you know, because we found out that our histories weren't being told in schools or anywhere else. So, you know, we took it upon ourselves, the artists, the writers, the photographers here, to record what had been lost and neglected for so long. So in a sense, I think many of us felt we had a mission, you know, to tell the stories that weren't being told. And one of the big things was being here, where we are now, at the I Hotel, because it was a gathering place of generations. Here is where we were able to tell, to listen to the stories of the old timers and get to know them and their histories and what they went through. And, you know, it was so valuable, the history. And I think, again, you know, the movement is so important during that time, the 70s, what you were saying, you know, the women's movement, I guess the gay liberation movement, and even if you look at it, the bowel movement, you know, I mean, that's all about freedom, right? I mean, it's all, movements, it's all,
But, it's the student strikes too.
Yeah, the student strikes, yeah. I was going to San Francisco State, and many people were, at the time we were establishing ethnic studies, many people putting themselves out on the line to make sure that, ethnic studies was going to be established. A lot of people got their heads busted. I know Doug Yamamoto is not here just now. So many people were in the front lines, George Leong. That's what I was, attracted to in this place, was the fact that it was the only place where Asian Americans can come together too. Not just Filipinos, not just Chinese, Japanese. It was all Asian Americans, and it was the only real Pan-Asian place where artists and writers, and we just came together so naturally, and there was no hostility or, who's better than anyone else. We had a shared history, from the oppression to, and we learned from each other so much about each other's history. We continue to. That's why organizations like this are so important, because it's an evolving thing. It's we're still learning so much, especially from the young people too.
Anybody else?
To add to what Lou and Nancy said was that art was a very vital role in the civil rights movement, and I think Kearny Street Workshop represented the consciousness of social change as reflected in art. And I think that's, I hope that will be the mission of Kearny Street Workshop forever, that it represents and reflects the struggles of the people in that moment, particular moment in history. When we were part of Kearny Street Workshop, I'm a native San Franciscan, and I moved to New York and worked there, and so I saw what was happening in New York, Chinatown, and the garment worker strikes and demonstrations, and it was paralleling what was happening in San Francisco with the I Hotel and all the evictions. There were evictions going on in New York City, in Confucius Plaza, and so I was working with Bridge Magazine and covering that. And then when I moved back to San Francisco, because my father was gravely ill, moved back and saw that these struggles were very, there was a reason for those struggles nationally. And so I think Kearny Street was part of a larger political struggle. And at that time, identity politics was very urgent because we had no access into the mainstream. Our art was summarily ignored. We never had any coverage of any of our artwork, never, in any of the mainstream papers. So you have to remember that history has really shifted. We wrote in a vacuum. That's why we met every week. Nancy and Lou was part of our writing workshop with George Leong. And because we realized that we would never get published. There was no access to any publications for non-whites in those days. So that ground and I think a lot of the effort of groups like Kearny Street Workshop, was part of that, shifting and basically kicking down the jams, kicking down the walls. And I think like Leland and Jim Dong, Nancy, were very strong and Doug in the visual arts, silk screen printing. So they used silk screen printings. All of those posters reflected every single march, every single strike, whether it was in South Africa, Stephen Biko, or in, the free speech movement. It was all part of that. And so that, the role of the arts, maybe, Leland and Jerry wanted to talk about, and say photographers and silk screen painters.
Yeah, curious, Jerry, because you've been around even before even before Kearny Street was formed as a workshop. you were active in E-Ways, was it? So can you talk a little bit about the conditions for why this workshop existed? But before you do, I do want to give a shout out to Bernice Bing, who was very instrumental in helping behind the scenes with Kearny Street Workshop too, in terms of getting a little bit of seed money together for the summer programs. But I want you to talk about those summer programs and exactly how Kearny Street Workshop got formed.
Okay, I'm Jerry. Before the political aspect of the workshop came about, we were generally a community organization. Jim Dong, Mike Wong, they started workshops. I changed it. Then later on, Laura Fu, and then Leland and myself came in. We were pretty much there because of our art. Jim got together with Spain, and he was responsible for giving us our initial funding, which we rented at a store next door here. And he's from the neighborhood arts program. And so she's an artist herself, so she and Jim were good friends, and they were talking, and then they got the funding together. And then Jim asked me, hey, we got some funding for this workshop in Chinatown. You want to teach a photography class? I said, sure, let's do that. And so originally, we didn't think of the wider picture of how political we can be. We just wanted to serve the Chinatown community. And so we had a lot of discussions about that. We drank, we sat in a lot of bars. We went to a lot of people's houses, we spoke though. That was the culture in that era. We brainstormed what would be this project. And so, it's a long story, so I try to summarize it. The first thing that we wanted to do, first model that we had was, we don't want art for art's sake. We always talk about art for art's sake, not being what we are. Even though all these people are great artists, they can make a lot of money. Some of them have their private artistic life. As an organization, we don't want to be art for art's sake organization. So one thing about the original workshop is we were involved with the community. The community did not know how to use our art. We did not know how to use art for the community, but we learned. And so we developed certain programs for the community. We did flyers for family planning organization, for civil rights. They weren't quite civil rights back then, but for housing rights and stuff like that. And one of the main projects that I remember that I'd like to share is, in old days we used to have the carnival come to Chinatown after the Chinese New Year parade. Then they were saying, well, all these people making money out of the Chinese people. We should learn how to make money for ourselves, or have the Chinese people or the Chinese organization have their booths put up and make money for their own organization, rather than have these folks, outsiders come in for 2 weeks to make a lot of money out of people. So therefore, the first hop job fair that came about. Hop job means to cooperate with Chinese. So hop job fair kicked out all those vendors from outside, and we organized. We went to a lot of meetings with other organizations, and there was a big kind of a picture of the first fair. There's a lot of people, and that later on became a health fair, and then became other things. But that was one of my projects. But there's so many. Some of the community projects I'd like to also mention is we painted murals at Congo Stockton and Chinese Playground. So we used the murals to lighten up the community. We did Angel Island. Angel Island originally was a photo trip. We went to Angel Island to take photos. Then some people from our workshop, Crystal, Huey, and other people got together in Mount Lai, professors at San Francisco State decided that Angel Island was very important to the Chinese experience, so they developed a whole exhibit. And and now we're into exhibits. Now we're going to exhibit these things, but we had our workshop was so too small. So somebody suggested, hey, let's see if the Hungry Eye used to be a nightclub in the old days where all the convenience started. It's a downstairs space. It was also called a paddy wagon. And so we Jim and Jim E. and Dennis, they're the ones who did the funding, but they somehow secured that space and developed into a gallery called the Jackson Street Gallery. And that's where I first met Nancy and Bob. They first came in and, oh, you guys are, Bob, you're a photographer. We have this gallery, let's do a show, let's do a photo show, or something like that. And so that's how that developed. So we had Angel Island, well, just other ones, but I'd like to mention the Summer Youth Program before I talk to a lot of people who cancer. The Summer Youth Program was a program sponsored by the Mayor's Office. It hired kids all over the city for half day of work and half day of pleasure. Pleasure means workshops and activities. I happened to be the area supervisor for the Summer Youth Program for three of the 5 years that and in the Chinatown, I was responsible for the Chinatown Work Beach community. And these two communities, we were allowed 300 slots. So that means we have 300 kids every summer that work for 3 months. And each group of kids are under a team leader. Leland was a team leader. Team leader had about 15 kids. And so the team leader would go to the job sites, make sure they're working. They would guide them to activities. So a lot of these Chinatown, in those days, a lot of these Chinatown people never got out of the community. In those days, there were a lot of new immigrants from Hong Kong and elsewhere. They weren't on a picnic. They never had anything other than sitting at home during the summer, and therefore there were a lot of gangs involved. And so a lot of gang members became team members also, and I think their life have improved and enlightened by sharing the wider world rather than just staying home and don't know what to do, they make trouble like a lot of young kids do. And so because of the second part of the program, the city was sponsoring the workshop part too. So I got a lot of equipment for this. I got 10 enlargers for the photography department. We gave guitar classes, photography classes, silk screen classes, pottery classes, jewelry making classes, and everything was free. Everything totally free. All the assistants of the Kearny workshop never was anything charged for the workshoppers for the young kids or older people. Later on, during the rest of the year, older people also came in and they went, oh, you got photography, I want to do photography. How much? Nothing. I want to do silk screening. Silk screening was very popular, but pottery making was very popular. And so that's what we were like back then. We were not, and then the I Hotel came about. When I Hotel came to it, besides the I Hotel, there were other political movements going on. But the I Hotel, we had to work, Rise Workshop, and Rise Workshop had Al Lopez, and Al Lopez was running around Manilatown interviewing people. And then while he was doing that, one of our photographers, Chris Hewlett, was following him, and Leland and other people were taking a lot of pictures of their lives before the eviction, how they lived daily. And so we got a lot of the I Hotel afterwards. But anyways, this is more to say, but I'll let these other people talk.
Yeah, Zand, tell us, Leland.
And guys, okay.
You were part of the old neighborhood.
Anyway, yeah, this was the block for me. I mean, I did a lot of solid growing up on this block because those were some of the years I was, UFA, United Federal Association, was down the block. I hung out there. I saw ACC get started in that basement. There was the youth council that was just downstairs in the Hungry Eye here. I just did I just moved from one organization to another, one hangout to another. But then there was Leeway also, Leeway was in the block, just down the street here. And then, and then Kearny Street Workshop came into the scene. And so that was right up my alley. Naturally I would, want to get involved. But, remember now, I was like 17 or 18, and I was a virgin, and, here was Mike Chin and Jim Dalton, they were, like 5 years older than me, and so, when it really gets done, it was Jim Dalton and Mike that really started the initial workshop. And then, getting, remember now, they're older than me, so a lot of these guys really took me seriously for a long time, and maybe that was good that they did. But, yeah, so, like I said, we did a lot of outside programs. Those were like, my 16, 17 years,
So you did posters when you were
Yeah, I was already an
your
artist.
teens?
I mean, in high school already, I was already doing my art, really. And that was coming out of the era of, psychedelic posters, and the cerebral rights movements and all that. So it was kind of just natural that I fell into this, to art that's relevant to the community, and to my own affinity, things like that.
You did murals too? Or?
I can't say I'm a muralist because I can't say, there were a lot of murals under my belt, but, I mean, what is murals to me? Just making the art bigger, That's all it is. Yeah, and I have painted, things bigger than life, than me, at least.
Yeah, well, I just remember when I came in 1974, and I came because Chris Kobayashi told me that they're painting a gigantic mural along the whole block of Jackson Street. That's when he first got the Jackson Street Gallery. We're probably sitting right here. There was a store.
Yeah, the hand store, this is right here.
Korean store, and then
Well,
beyond
Taiwanese.
Taiwanese, beyond that, would you say like
Yeah,
right around there was the start?
Yeah,
Was the start of Jackson Street Gallery, and that's where we were. And but I came because of the mural, even though I have I'm scared of heights and can only paint the bottom half. But I was dying for something. I came from New York and I graduated out of art school, and I was dying for something to sink my teeth into that would relate to me as an Asian American. And I heard about this workshop. I have to tell you, it was so hard to find you guys. Because every time I came down here, the place was closed. And I had no idea when these folks would meet. It wasn't during normal hours, and then I heard once I got involved that people would have a quick meeting and then run to the bar. They would work all day, and and be at Pork Chop House or wherever it was. They were up the street and not exactly at the workshop at the times when I was looking for it.
I want to mention that after the bar, we came back to the workshop.
Yeah. But the real meeting was at the bar.
Because most of the photographers worked, I remember working daily, overnight, we kept that darkened and we built it in the workshop.
Yeah. Well, that was, that alludes to the culture of Kearny Street Workshop, because I remember it was such an exciting time that I had to be here every day. And I do remember that every day something was happening. I think Monday was a meeting, Tuesday George Leon led the writers' workshop. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thursdays, whatever. And then there would be a photography workshop, there would be Tai Chi. There was something here every day. So and I had a full-time job. Those were the days when I could get to a job by 9 o'clock, work the whole day, grab some dinner, and run down here. And we didn't leave till the bars were closed, or the bartender would close the door, and we would still be there. And then we would sometimes sleep overnight here, or just work overnight. So it was a very intense, exciting time, and I hope we convey that. You have more to add, Zand? You've been awfully quiet.
I didn't come until after 1977, so I was letting the sequence. So I'm sort of like the second generation. And I agree with Nancy that when I first came, I was really excited just by the energy of the people in the workshop. And the first person I met, I remember, was Jerry. And I was really into photography, and what he kind of adopted me, and he would take me around Chinatown, introducing me to all these various different, the older photographers and all the other photographers in the workshop. So I'm really grateful to Jerry. I still consider myself a photographer, but so from 77 till about mid-80s, so that period.
You saw the time of because we all got evicted in 1977.
Yeah, so I came just when the workshop got kicked out. And so it was in that transition period that I was involved in the workshop, where we kind of go from garage to space to space to space.
Oh, I see. Well, let's talk about the International Hotel, because that was so much a part of KSW's identity, and that experience of fighting against eviction, being evicted, and fighting for low-income housing, and also recovering. It took many, many years. I don't even know if we've all really recovered from that experience. Every year, the I Hotel commemorates, the Manilatown Heritage Foundation commemorates that night of eviction. It was very traumatic. I think 3,000, 4,000 people mobilized that night. The cops came with horses and billy clubs just to evict the elderly tenants. So I know Kearny Street Workshop, because we were here and the tenants were upstairs, we had a relationship with the International Hotel. So we were fighting for our homes too. I want to briefly mention that the other tenants, there was ACC, Asians, what is it? ACC.
It's a radical leftist
Yeah, it's a radical leftist organization, along with CPA, Chinese Progressive Association. And who else was in the building?
Where's everybody's bookstore?
Yeah,
Everybody's Bookstore. Well, anyway, so there were at least
You know,
three that we
barbershop.
can remember.
You know the barber shop on Blue Line?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was Ruth or Stars Cafe.
Stars Cafe,
Silver Wing.
and also Primo's, where
Yeah, Primo's.
Al's favorite dish was rice with gravy on top.
It was a boiled beef.
And the boiled beef. But we were, it wasn't that the tenants were upstairs and we were here, we were isolated. We interacted with the tenants, a lot of them came down, and some of them invited us to their rooms. I remember Zand, you took some pictures of tenants in their rooms.
Freddie.
And Freddie was around playing his banjo. So we really got a sense of community with the International Hotel, and also with the protesters. I'm sorry, Jiao was not here because he worked for KPFA at that time and recorded a lot of the goings-on in the hotel. Al Robles was a very key part of that in the terms of he knew the tenants personally, and he knew Al. He was the kind that you told stories with and shared your life experience with, and he really cared about the elderly in the community, and especially in the International Hotel. So, and Al was, he started with you, I think, and George Leon, he started the poetry workshop. So we had a lot of interaction, and that's what made the eviction of all of us so traumatic. Does anybody have anything more to say about the International Hotel? Because what happened afterwards, well, I just want to mention that I think we did no less than 4 separate exhibits on the International Hotel, every aspect of it, the tenants, the low-income housing, the need for low-income housing, politically what was happening in the city, much like what people would do today, the backstory of why the encroachment and why redevelopment was ruining this city. But we could only fight back through. Wong did a big V-shaped mural that hung in the Museum of Modern Art, actually. It was commissioned by them. But he chose as his topic the International Hotel. And if you go to the this hotel, you could see a replica of that V-shaped mural. And I worked on it with him too. It was a way of showing the outer world what was happening to this community here. And we did posters, well, tons of poetry. We published We Won't Move, and after eviction, we published a calendar that chronicled every single moment leading up to the night of eviction. And after eviction, in 1977, we moved to a place on Mason. Was it Mason? Chestnut. See, none of us could really remember that place, even back then, because we blocked it out of our memories. It was like Lombard and Chestnut.
Yeah, it was an odd space.
We had an awesome storefront, a gorgeous place by any standard. And it was right in the heart of North Beach. And we were so traumatized, we didn't even put a sign out. We had blinds drawn. Nobody knew we were there, and we didn't even want to be there. It was like we were thrust out of our homes, and we were refugees. But there, KSW had to regroup and continue as best we can. But we didn't have the community that we had at the I Hotel. So I remember that short time that we were there as a time for, that's when I really got into silk screening. And I think there was some makeshift photography there. We made a dark room. We made a makeshift dark room and a makeshift silk screen area, and we held meetings and started publishing books of poetry. KSW was one of the few, or maybe even the first organization to publish books by Filipino poets, starting with Without Names, and then Jeff Tagani's book, October Light, and what other book? Genny's book, Winter Place.
Virginia Serena had a book,
Yeah.
and what's the other ones?
Virginia Serena.
Lenny Limhoko had published a great book, Pursuing Wild Bamboo. Also out of Kearny Street.
Yeah.
I remember Lenny Limhoko. He was very proud to be a part of Kearny Street Workshop. Even when he went to the Philippines, he would talk about Kearny Street Workshop and spread the word about this community art agency. And, there were people who would come to Kearny Street or the Writers Workshop just once, and then they would claim to be a part of Kearny Street Workshop. That was how popular this place was, just to be a part of it. And, we were bound together by a lot of things, food and, just I think mainly because we believed in what was happening with the I Hotel primarily. I think that was a big issue in most of our lives, as a kind of galvanizing point of struggle right there. You use that term a lot, struggle, but you know, those, yeah, the I Hotel kind of brought us all together in many ways, and when it was evicted, when the tenants were evicted, it really we were kind of dispensed, or we were scattered kind of for a long time, and like Nancy was saying, it felt kind of like a refugee because we didn't have our central place. This block was really the place, you know, the community. This was the place. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that when we were in that odd space, a Lombard or something in Mason, where was it, Chestnut? Yeah, we had an opportunity at that time to move into Fort Mason. I remember one of the people on the board at Fort Mason, Ruby was approached me. He says, "Is it Kearny Street interested in moving into Fort Mason?" I think I talked to Jim Dawn, a couple of people said, "No, we're Chinatown, you know, we're Chinatown based." And I said, "Okay," you know, and then they moved into that odd place, and I often wondered, you know, how that would have
South Park too.
played out. Yeah, then we were in South Park, but as a result, we never went back to Chinatown anyway.
Well, no, we did.
Well,
Manilatown Senior Center, you sure?
oh, yeah, I mean now, but at that, you know, that time, for a long time, yeah.
Dan, tell her.
When Manilatown was in the basement, the senior center was in the basement, KSW had some of the rooms down the hall, the dungeon.
Yeah, that's true. That's
We would
true.
do printmaking, we'd set up a
Yeah,
dark room. I mean,
yeah.
printmaking
the
was awful
basement,
because
right,
there was
that's
no
true.
ventilation. But we still did workshops, and we still used our work.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, my memory was like rip. But we also, about the poetry readings was, I remember going to San Quentin.
Yeah.
We did a reading there, and Jessica Hagedorn was part of that.
Right.
Yeah, that was, so our whole frame of mind at that time was doing things that we felt connected with issues, population who had issues with
We
social
worked with
justice.
a lot of other communities also. I remember doing readings at La Peña, and, you know, all these other, you know, universities, colleges, community, you know, organization, places like that. So, you know, you see Santa Cruz everywhere, you know. And, I mean, it was some heady times. I think the main thing was we really enjoyed each other's company, too. We had a good time, you know. I mean, we were always cutting it up and, you know, joking around and not
David
taking
Drew was
ourselves
part of
seriously.
the crew back there.
Yeah.
Wow. One of my worst piece of memory from Kearny Street Workshop was the day that the hotel got evicted. Nobody called my ass. I slept through it. I worked in Silicon Valley, so I was cut out on it, and I was really pissed for a long time. I really missed out. I wanted to fight Sheriff Mengistu so bad. I was ready to rumble with him.
Yeah.
He betrayed the community. He
Pass
actually
those
went in
guys.
there with a hat.
Oh yeah, well,
Well, you know, we could spend a whole hour just talking about the first year of Kearny Street Workshop, but it's perfect because we're just going to ask if the audience had any questions.
Yes, Nancy, I just wanted to say, because we just had the J-Town Suite last week, at the same time, there are two comments I wanted to make. In terms of the Filipino poets published, the first one was actually Flips in 1971, followed by Iwana in 1972. And that comes out of the San Francisco State Collective. And a lot of people from San Francisco State also work here at the International Hotel. My point is that at the same time, it wasn't just here, it was in the Fillmore and Kane, remember, Citizens Against Nihon Machi eviction. That's happening at the same time. And a lot of us grew up in J-Town as well as Chinatown, as well as Manilatown. So it was a bigger, and then of course the Vietnam War, that's really what got us all together. So as Nancy said earlier on, but it's interesting we're having this commemoration because we just younger generation in J-Town to talk about, again, we have to say that little part of community of 100 years of what happened to the interracial community coming out of the Western edition of the film, like you.
Yeah, I think it's the time to start wrapping it up and asking the audience for questions. But I don't want to forget one important part in our 10-year history, because at the very end of those 10 years was the start of the Asian American Jazz Festival. And I don't want people to forget that it was Kearny Street Workshop that did it. I think the first one was 1981. Zand did the posters for the Asian American Jazz Festival. George Leong and Paul Yamasaki approached Kearny Street Workshop to see if we would sponsor the Asian American Jazz Festival. So you remember any more about that?
I just remember going to meetings, that's all. But I did the first 6 posters, and then Nancy did
Yeah.
after me.
But that first one in 1981, I remember a very young Wapo Lee. I think he was only 8 or 10 or something. But he had a friend named Joshua Redmond who played at that festival. And, the rest is history after that. And I don't remember who else played in that first one. I should have brought your poster with me. But that stuck with me, that the Asian American Jazz Festival continued for 17 years with so many, under Kearny Street's guidance, and with so many different names. They were all curated by Mark Isu, a wonderful curator, and he brought in so many people. Horace Tapscott before he died,
There was a Filipino piano summit with Flip Nunez, Bobby Enriquez, and Rudy Tenyo.
yeah,
I remember over at Bimbo's or something.
Tyco, you
Break
name
new
it.
ground, yeah.
Yeah, you name
All
it.
kinds of great-
That was another first for the genre. So any questions from the audience? Oh,
Yeah, you
I want
know.
to mention too, since you're mentioning these first, we were the first Asian American Film Festival. You remember that?
yeah, yeah. I did the poster for that.
Yeah, so that's something that we should too,
Yeah.
as the first film festival that happened here in the Texas Street Gallery. It's called the Golden Mountain on the Silver Screen. And from there on, everyone else started doing film festivals. This is way before CAM or Manilatown, all that even existed. Basement is New York. But I don't know.
They did it concurrently.
San Francisco. We
Yeah.
were the first Asian American film festival.
Yeah, we were the first for a whole lot of things. Sonny?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I just want to mention real quickly, 2 other things that I'm proud of the workshop is that every Thanksgiving, we work with the YMCA, and Norman Yee, who's now the supervisor of San Francisco right now, was the director at that time, and we gathered turkeys all around the community, and we fed the community during the Thanksgiving holidays. And during the Christmas holiday, there was a toy drive. During Thanksgiving, also Dolly Fu was who had required. She's a cook, a chef, and she's also part of the workshop. And then also, every Christmas, we would have a toy drive with Norman, and for about 5 years, we would give free toys to the community. So those 2 other things that I'm kind of proud of the workshop sponsoring.
And here's Norman Jiao. With some...
Not me, Ray Carr.
So we are wrapping up, Norman. Any thoughts? Yeah, any thoughts about Kearny Street Workshop's first 10 years? After you catch your breath.
Yeah,
So good to see you.
That or I
both, I don't talk Kearny Street.
He always likes to make dramatic entrances.
What happened here was Asian American people were coming together because they're in the world. In Asia, there's different people, different countries, different relationships.
And Mike?
We had to fight together to stand up. And that happened here in America, right? And then coming over here, the surf. This guy, what's your name?
Yeah.
His older brother, poet, right? He was just brought it in and found the elders, started learning about the elders. And that's so important, not only in our communities, but Native American communities and the world before this in America. And that was something that has to come back around now, the next generations. Because if we don't remember, a lot of kids are growing up today and they don't know what happened with the racism in America, the stuff that was so bad. And the fact is that stuff's not over. It's not over. It's going to come back around. It's going to hit again. People, I mean, like this brother here, leading right now, probably should. I'm talking about Tony coming in here, stepping up and bringing back all this stuff. It's like that spirit. So Kearny Street was the place where we used to come in just to have a glass of wine and somebody would say, let's go. And poems would be coming out, poetry. But it wasn't like educational poetry, it was expression from the voice. And the fact that that was on this side, and over there were the elders, and then the people who were trying to take the property and evict everybody. That was what was happening here, because this used to be the Filipino community from here all the way down, parallel to Chinatown. It's the Asian American part of the world, and it got hit, slapped, torn down. And then people stood here and stood up and stopped it the best way they could for years, until 400 police came over here with the sheriff standing up on that bridge. And they came over, knocked into the front door, and really came up on the roof with ladders to break down. Heavy. So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. So any other questions from the audience? Tell us.
You know, coming to this country in 1981 as a Vietnamese refugee, it didn't take me long to discover there is such a thing as Asian American. And at that time in the Bay Area, luckily we had the Kearny Street Bookshop, and we had, God, what's his name? The Silk Screen Project, Japan Tower Arts and what is it?
Jam.
And then we had the Asian American Theater Company, and then we had the Ohana Culture Center in East Bay, of which I eventually became the director of. And my point is that I appreciate that you brought up the Vietnam experience. At that time, we had all these new immigrants coming in without the American baggage. Seeing Kearny Street Bookshop and AATC on stage, I found that I didn't have to be Vietnamese anymore. I could be an Asian American. And what it meant was that not only an identity, but voice. You know, we grew up seeing dead white man's art, and, you know, from Picasso to Matisse to Pollock, and there was these cats here. These people doing kind of funky, interesting things that any one of us could have done. And it was this powerful kick, you know, it's very heartfelt, you know, and you know, basically a place in society for you. And for me in the 80s, seeing the coming together of Asians, Latinos, African Americans, handicapped, veterans, everybody, it was an amazing experience. And I don't know, to me it was like a second flower revolution, you know, the second Haight-Ashbury Street. For me, I caught the tail end of it, but seeing you guys doing what you were doing for nothing and practically wouldn't pay for it.
Still.
Still. I mean, that's to me, we, otherwise, I feel today less so because kids or young people can do many things on their own in a vacuum, or that they could basically sit at home with an app and create something incredible, but without a sense of community. What we had was community.
I think that's the real key, that there was a home to come to, and that there was a sense of community. I think, do we have time for one more question? We have one more question I saw over there. Yeah.
Well, I've heard a lot of collaboration, like you were saying, collaboration between the East Bay and here, and then collaboration all over San Francisco. And then you just mentioned just everyone being on the internet and that being the virtual community. How much collaboration was there? Well, it's two parts. How much collaboration was there between the Bay Area and Seattle and LA and New York? And then also a separate question, if there's time for that, is knowing how much repression there was for the Black Panthers and a lot of other groups aimed, and knowing that there was repression in the face, or the Asian Americans here were faced with repression from the local police. How did folk face the same amount of repression from the state, from the FBI clientele probe, and how did that affect the trauma?
I can talk to that. A lot of us who grew up in the Bay Area, Asian Americans, we were sort of the blacks were the bigger group, and the Latinos were the bigger group. And among the Japanese, Chinese, and Filipinos were the major three groups there. There was a big set Chinatown. Japantown was eviscerated because of the incarceration. Then when they come back from camp, they're tearing down Japantown with the Japanese government to make it a tourist spot and getting rid of all the blacks in the Fillmore. And so the position we were in, those of us who were able to go to college because the master plan of California is kicking in saying there are too many people in California and there are more non-white people coming and they're having kids. And so they started blocking who could go to the University of California and who could go to the California state system and who could go to the community colleges. That's when we went on strike on San Francisco State, because all of a sudden they were blocking people going to school. But where we could go was City College. City College was free. Anybody could go there. The only stipulation was that if you did not pass your first interim after 6 weeks, then they could drop you. But that was the way we got into college. In fact, there was a Filipino club, a Chinese club, a Japanese club at City College. And then they transferred to UC Berkeley, near GE. So what happened is that the Black Panthers also were at were at City College, and we were trying to do tutorial programs for our kids. What is it called? The mission, the Brown Berets and the mission were worried. The folks in Leland, in Chinatown, the JCYC in Japantown. We were in South of Market. That's where the Filipinos were. The Filipinos were not in Kearny Street. People forget that Kearny Street was where the bachelors were. But we raised our families down in the Fillmore and in South of Market. That's where, really, when you talk about the Filipino community. And so those people all came together, and they were all repressed. I know my brother, a lot of guys, they were followed. Right, the guys in Chinatown, Japantown, Manilatown, whenever they went to the Emporium or any of the places downtown, the kids were followed. The guys, particularly the guys, were hassled. They would be up at the juvenile center. And that's how a lot of the programs started. We were involved not just in the arts program, but trying to keep our kids from dropping out of school, from being drafted to go to Vietnam and from ending up at juvenile hall. And that's how all these programs came together. And yes, and that's why the Third World Liberation Front, particularly at State and Berkeley, were very firm that united we stand, divided we fall. And also at that point, don't forget, Alcatraz is being let go as a federal prison, and so the American Indians, particularly from San Francisco State, begin to occupy Alcatraz. So all this stuff is happening, right, in the early 70s. And we're pulling out of Vietnam. So it becomes very global. And yeah, the black community is really ripped apart because they kill all the Black Panthers, not just here. I ended up going, what they did to some of us, some of the leaders of the strike, they pulled us out and they sent us to elite universities. I got sent to the University of Chicago. And what I found out in Chicago was it wasn't the Black Panthers, it was the Blackstone Rangers. And they were being harassed along with the Blackstone, along with the Black Panthers. Then you go to New York, and you see it's very global, is how this is all. So yeah, we were all harassed.
Yeah, well, I think we have more to the program, so this is just a tip of the iceberg. There's so much to talk about, and I'm so glad to see an intergenerational mix of audience here today. This is what I always wanted, was for the generations to get to know each other and to exchange the stories, because it's knowing our history that we can move forward into the future. So thanks so much for listening. Thank you, Jason and TJ, for having this and having us up here to tell our stories and talk to us, later on, because, and if you see us in the community, because we're still active, it's not like we're not in the old folks' home yet. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you to the panels, and I'm so glad Jiao made it.